to maybe if you can just briefly explain to us your interaction and contact with Gayton Mckenzie. When did that begin, and why was that central to your affidavit?
Okay, so I met Gayton through a mutual friend by the name of Mario Francis, also known as Gayton. I met him in around 2012, and then we started interacting again in 2020 with the death of Nathaniel Julius, right? Gayton then asked me to assist him thereafter because we made a big noise with the death of Nathaniel Julius. It was something that was close to my heart because my kids live like a street away from me, right?
Yeah.
He then asked me if I could please run a social media campaign and get people on the ground to help him with the relief in my election. Right? So at the time, my mother had a shop in the relief, and my family from the relief, so I knew quite a lot of people there. Right? I also called what's her name, Joanna Smith, or Dina, she's called now, Shark Watson, Dwayne Ponsonby, and then got in basically the campaign, and then I ran the social media campaign. I also invested quite a bit in the campaign. With the result, the PA then won the by-election. This is the very same people I recruited and went on to El Dorado Park, Ward 17 and Ward 18, and then won those by-elections. Gayton then, he owed me quite a bit of money that I invested in the campaign, right? And it just wasn't forthcoming, right? So this obviously led to a dispute between the two of us, and also a lot of Patriotic Alliance members, they tried to have like an unbound campaign in El Dorado Park. But it was actually the family members who were the shooters or the killers in El Dorado Park. So I then told them, I said, listen, instead of making a noise at the police station, go take your children and bring them to the police station so they can be arrested. Right? And that's where the major fallout began. And then there was a voice conversation between Juwaria, Caldine, and Pastor Kurt van Heerden. 32-minute conversation. So Pastor Kurt then gave the recording to Justin Barnos, and Justin Barnos gave me the recording.
This all, sorry, Jermaine, I'm going to interject. This all while you are in prison.
Yes. Look, Gayton sent in like 2 phones for me at the time.
Sorry, Gayton Mckenzie sent you 2 cell phones in prison. That's how you had access to cell phones, and you were able to, according to what you're saying, rally up support for the Patriotic Alliance from prison.
Yes.
Okay.
Look, before then, there was no Patriotic Alliance. It was registered in 2013, but it was basically dead. There was nothing happening, you know. What then happened was, with the recording, I decided, I've had enough of his lies and misleading people. And on the recording, Joera talks that he receives drug money from Chanel Stevens, who is the daughter of the late Fred Stevens, right? So I made this recording go viral. And then Gayton had told me, I made it go viral in the community groups in El Dorado Park and the Relief. So Gayton then came to me and said, listen, if you continue with this, I'll have you put in CMAX. So I said, okay, not a problem. Even if you put me on the moon, I'm still going to have the same time. People need to know the truth. So I sent the recording to my father, and Gayton then had them to put me in CMAX. As an awaiting trial, if they need, I was then held in sentence inmates in phase 1 in CMAX. I went to court and then gave the recording to Kaya Koko, who was at the time with the bail and guardian. So that's where most of the fights came from.
Okay, could I just get clarity? This recording that's making the rounds, that includes Juwaira, she's saying that was manipulated and it's AI, but you can confirm that you had access to that recording and you leaked that recording. When did you leak that recording?
I leaked the recording in 2022. There was no AI back then, right?
Okay.
So
I want to,
authentic recording.
You can confirm that according to you, it's an authentic recording. How did you get access to that recording?
So Pastor Kurt gave it to his friend, or him and his friend recorded the conversation. And his friend was actually one of my close friends that I grew up with, as I said earlier. And they then gave it to me. And I decided that people need to know the truth. And that's why I made it go viral.
I want us to focus on you being in CMAX. So let's just get this straight. You are incarcerated for over 8 years, if I'm not mistaken, on charges of fraud and car theft. And you were moved to CMAX for 4 years. You've just been taken out of CMAX now. Are you saying that the reason why you were moved to CMAX is because of Gayton Mckenzie?
Yes. Look, Gayton himself made a video where he said that it's because of him. He took in CMAX. He had a relationship with the regional or ex-regional commissioner, Mr. Mashinini, right? And that's how he then had me put in CMAX. So, in CMAX you can only stay, sentenced people can only stay there for a maximum of 18 months, according to the SOP. I was held in phase 1 for over 3 years, awaiting trial.
Okay, because when I interviewed Gayton Mckenzie last year, January, 2025, January, I asked him about his alleged influence in moving you to CMAX. And he said that it's because you were threatening and harassing members of especially women of the Patriotic Alliance. What is your response to that?
So, this is very, very simple. If indeed I was threatening any woman from the Patriotic Alliance, there would have been cases opened. I promise you they would have run off to the police station. But that did not happen. That's very, very false. It's untrue. And he's lying. He put in CMAX to try and gag me, to silence me for speaking the truth. He was also worried. So I know why the Patriotic Alliance was started, right? He was scared that I was going to reveal why the party was started.
Why was the party started?
The Patriotic Alliance was actually started by the ANC, right, to win over the vote of the colored people. So the ANC was experiencing a problem, more specifically in the Western Cape, and hence the formation of the Patriotic Alliance to disturb the vote in the Western Cape, win over the colored vote for the ANC.
Okay, when last did you speak to Gayton Mckenzie?
Just before I went to CMAX.
And what did he say to you? Did you claiming he threatened you?
That's when he threatened you that he's going to have me put in CMAX. And that's why I then sent the recordings and the evidence that I had to my father and to different family members, because I knew that he's going to do that.
Okay. I want to move over to some parts of your affidavit. Your affidavit, you speak about some sort of drug cartel, and you allege that the Patriotic Alliance and members within the Patriotic Alliance, which include Gayton Mckenzie, you allege that they are involved in drug cartels. Could you just tell me, why do you say that? What evidence do you have to prove that they are part of this drug cartel?
So, firstly, if you listen to the voice recording, Joanna Caldina herself confirmed that Gayton received drug money from Chanel or from Stevens, which was fine, right? So, Gayton, we had a very close relationship, right? And we speak about personal things, right? So, at the time, he was having a problem with his supplier, which is taking leave, right? And he knew that I know somebody who also deals in drugs, a specific Mandrax tablets. So he wanted me to speak to my person to get a better price for me, right? He transports his drugs to Cape Town. I know who we sell the drugs in Cape Town. I know the two gang leaders there that sell the specific drugs.
And who else in the Patriotic Alliance do you allege that is part of this drug cartel?
So, if you listen to, you made another video over the weekend, last weekend, and he confirmed that Debbie Reynolds was an ex-drug dealer but he felt she needs a second chance. She's not an ex-drug dealer. You know she's still using drugs because they work together.
So you've mentioned Katie Molefe, and previously Kenny Kunene was found at the premises of Katie Molefe. He alleges it was for an interview purpose. What do you make of that?
So I know that because of my conversation with Gayton, that Katie was their supplier. Right? He's the main supplier. And when it became apparent that Kenny was at Katie's house when Katie was arrested, it was easy to join the dots.
Okay, I want us to move over to another element in your affidavit. You speak of a man named Faruk, and you are basically saying that his murder should be traced back to certain activities by Gayton Mckenzie. What do you mean by that?
So, during the Nathaniel Julius saga, Faruk was also on the ground, and he was also making a lot of noise about the murder of Nathaniel Julius, right? And Gayton then came and used the death of Nathaniel Julius to try and garner support for people to uplift the Patriotic Alliance, right? So Faruk was having none of it, and they had words with each other. It's common knowledge that they were fighting about this. They were WhatsApping each other, swearing each other. Faruk telling Gayton, you'll do this, and Gayton telling Faruk, you'll do that. Making personal game things on each other. So after that, I had assumed it was sorted out because Gayton spoke to me like several times, even during the fight. But then one day, Gayton gave me a call and said, listen, phone Faruk and find out where he is. Right? And I had just spoken to Faruk like an hour before that. I said, okay, let me find out. I didn't really make anything of it. So then I called Faruk and we spoke, and he told me that he's at his scrapyard. And I then told Gayton, no, he's at his scrapyard. I thought that maybe Gayton wants to go speak to him about something. I wasn't sure what was the reason, And half an hour later, I then got a call and said, hey, did you hear what happened to Faruk? And I said, no, what happened? They said, no, he was murdered. Him and Marcus. And they then sent me the picture. So I was very shocked. And I still couldn't put the dots together. I couldn't believe that Gayton would do that. Right? But only afterwards it came to me that he asked me to find out where Faruk was.
Can you, Jermaine, can you prove that Gayton Mckenzie owes you and your family money? Do you have evidence to support that?
Yes, I can. I've got email conversations or email correspondence between me and one of his girlfriends, Pakan. Right? I've got bank statements to prove it. I paid like Peter's T-shirts, all the suppliers I've dealt with. I've got all the evidence. I've even got conversations between me and Gayton where he's thanked me and said, thank you, my brother, for helping me build the party from Matthew. I've got all the evidence.
Do you believe that your incarceration for 8 years on charges of car theft and fraud is being delayed or influenced in some way, and if so, by who?
Definitely. So, remember I was telling you I met Gayton through Mario Francis, that's his best friend and was my friend at the time as well. So, they had influence with the investigating officer, Solly Masangani. And I've seen, so when they take me to court, I sit at the back and Solly in front. And I've seen messages between Solly and Pitt. I mean, Solly was even at Pitt's house warning when he bought his new house in Pennsylvania Golf Estate. So I know for sure that they have been influencing my cases.
So do you believe Gayton is behind all of this?
100%. 100%.
And do you believe that Gayton is behind all of this because you blew the lid on what's really going on in the Patriotic Alliance and the fact that they owe you money?
Definitely. It's not just about the money. The money's part of it. The shooting in Eldorado Park is part of it. And also, one of the things also that I mentioned to him, I said, at the time in 2022, he made his girlfriend, his child mother, he made her the MNC of housing. Her name is Cynthia Leach. Right? those are the things that I told him I'm going to expose. So he tried his best to silence me. When I said, look, I'm going to expose this, I'm going to expose the fact that why the party was started, and that's why he had me put in CMAX. And obviously with my criminal cases as well, he even said it straight out to me. He said, we were trying to get you out. Now you'll never come out. I said, well, it's fine. We'll see what happens.
I want you to speak to me about your engagement with Kat Matlala. You were obviously next to him when you were in CMAX. And he also said some damning things to you, allegedly. Could you take me through that?
So, we were pretty close in the beginning, right? And I explained to him that why I'm there because of Gayton, Mckenzie and all of that. And the drug dealing. And then he also confirmed to me that Gayton gets his stuff from Gayton, believe it. And I explained to him, I think I'm not going to let this go. I'm going to make a lot of noise about it. And I'm not going to let I've been through a lot because of Gayton. And then he told me, well, if you continue on the road, you're going, this thing is going to end in tears. I said, in tears for who? He said, well, remember, you've got family outside. I said, okay, well, let's see how it ends. Let them do what they want to do. I'll do what I need to do.
So sorry, I want to get this straight. Kat Matlala warned you to stop speaking because it's not going to end well for your family.
Yes.
And stop speaking on what? On what you believe is Gayton's influence and dealings with drugs?
Yes, but I shouldn't mention that, and yeah, for any tears.
Okay, what else did Matlala tell you? I mean, he mentioned Ramaphosa at some points.
Look, there's a lot of things he did tell me, but most of the things form part of a police investigation, right? And unfortunately, I can't divulge that.
Yeah.
Because it's very sensitive police information.
So we've been told through the ad hoc committee and the Madlanga Commission that there is this big five that's basically running the country. And not all the names have been divulged. Would you say, according to the evidence that you have and what's been going on over the last couple of years, even with your particular case, who would you say is involved in this big five cartel or proxies of this big five?
Look, I can tell you that Gayton is definitely a proxy of the big five, right? And I can't reveal all the names of the big five, although I am aware of who they are. As I said, it forms part of a police investigation, right? And then I can't just call out all their names, but yes, Gayton is a part of it.
Why do you believe that you were not asked to appear before the ad hoc committee? They said it was based on time constraints. Do you believe that that's true?
That is definitely not true. So obviously the information I have and the evidence I have is pretty damning evidence. So if they went to great lengths to put me in CMAX to silence me, they did the same thing with the ad hoc committee to try and silence me.
And you would gladly go to the Madlanga Commission?
Definitely.
I want to speak about what's next for you, because you are obviously in a very difficult position. You've now been moved to normal prison because there was a ruling that it was unlawful for you to have stayed in CMAX for so long. But you are facing 2 cases, if I'm not mistaken, or 2 charges. Just take me through that if you can. Obviously, I know it's a bit sensitive because it's still in court. But do you worry that it's going to now be further delayed because you are now speaking out?
I'm not sure. It's possible that it could be further delayed. There's definitely a spanner in the works. But I'm going to let the legal process follow, and we'll see what happens.
Do you fear for your life or your family's life?
To be honest, I do not fear for my life. If I have to die for speaking the truth, then so be it. But I'm definitely not keeping quiet any longer. I've suffered too much because of this guy.
And, there have been allegations and claims made about how you are just bitter because you were depending on the PA to get you out of prison, and people basically casting a shadow over this alleged evidence that you have. What do you